15 years ago, Lily and Mark were inseparable. From playing by the creek behind their neighborhood to endless hours spent exploring the city's hidden corners, their childhood was a tapestry of memories woven together. But then, one day, Lily's family moved away, and with them, the bond was severed. Letters and phone calls turned into distant echoes, until one day, even those faded away. Mark, now a successful lawyer, had tried to move on, though he often found himself reflecting on his childhood in the quiet moments. Lily, on the other hand, had blossomed into a famous model, her face gracing the covers of magazines and advertisements. Yet, for all her fame, a part of her still longed for the simplicity of her childhood, for the connection she once had with someone who truly knew her. Mark had been working late when he received the call. It was from an old colleague, a journalist, who had stumbled upon an intriguing story. A high-profile model, none other than Lily, had been accused of murdering a prominent businessman. The case was all over the news, but there was something about it that felt surreal to Mark. He hadn't seen Lily in years. Still, the name stirred something deep within him. He'd never forgotten her face, or the way she laughed, the way her eyes sparkled in the sunlight. Driven by a mix of curiosity and duty, Mark decided to investigate the case. He never imagined that his path would lead him back to her. The first time he saw her in person, she was standing in the courthouse lobby, her demeanor cold and distant. The cameras flashed around her as reporters shouted questions. Lily, the woman who had once been his best friend, now stood as a criminal suspect. Mark approached cautiously, not sure if she'd recognize him. The years had changed both of them. Lily turned at the sound of his voice. "Mark?" Her voice was hesitant, uncertain. He stared at her, trying to make sense of the woman in front of him. Gone was the carefree girl from his childhood. Instead, standing before him was a model, poised and perfect, but behind her eyes, there was something broken, something unrecognizable. "Lily," Mark said, his voice trembling slightly. "It's really you." She nodded, her eyes scanning him. It was clear she didn't remember him. Not at first. Mark agreed to take on Lily's case, despite his hesitations. The evidence seemed stacked against her, but something about the accusations didn't sit right with him. The woman he remembered was kind-hearted, full of laughter. Murder seemed impossible for someone like her. As the weeks passed, Mark grew closer to Lily, their bond rekindling in unexpected ways. She confided in him, revealing details about her troubled life since their separation. Behind the glamorous exterior, Lily had struggled with loneliness, addiction, and the pressure of the public eye. "I never wanted this life," Lily confessed one evening, her eyes distant. "But it's the only one I could have. I've lost so much. I just want to be free." Mark, determined to clear her name, dug deeper. He uncovered evidence that suggested Lily might have been set up. But the deeper he went, the more questions he had. She had always been a beautiful enigma. But now, there was a darkness that seemed to consume her. The trial reached its peak. The evidence was damning. Witnesses, a trail of circumstantial evidence, and Lily's strange behavior all painted her as the murderer. But Mark wasn't ready to give up. He knew Lily, or at least he thought he did. One night, as they reviewed the case files together, something in the way Lily spoke struck Mark as strange. Her story had changed. She had told him that she was innocent, but now her words seemed rehearsed, too careful. "I didn't do it," Lily said again, her eyes pleading. But Mark wasn't sure anymore. Then, in a moment of desperation, Mark followed a lead that had been buried deep in the investigation. a clue that led him to an old photograph of Lily and the businessman, caught in a compromising position. The pieces started to fall into place, and Mark realized the truth. Lily had killed him. It wasn't self-defense. It wasn't an accident. She had murdered him in cold blood. Confronting her was the hardest thing Mark had ever done. He walked into her hotel room, where she sat by the window looking out at the city lights. "Lily," he began, his voice breaking, "I found the truth." She didn't turn to face him, but her shoulders tensed. "You killed him, didn't you?" Mark whispered. Lily turned slowly, a faint smile on her lips. "I didn't have a choice. He was going to destroy everything I had worked for. He was going to ruin me." Mark recoiled, the weight of the revelation sinking in. The woman he had tried so hard to defend was a murderer. The guilt and disgust swirled inside him. How could he have believed in her? How could he have tried to help her escape her crimes? He took a step back, his face contorted with emotion. I can't help you anymore." Lily's smile faltered, but she didn't beg. Instead, she sat there, silent, as if resigned to her fate. The trial ended with Lily's conviction. Mark was left to pick up the pieces of his shattered trust. He had defended someone he believed to be innocent, but in the end, he had been blind to the truth. As Lily was led away in handcuffs, Mark stood there, watching the woman he once called his best friend disappear into the darkness. The world would never know the truth of what had happened between them, only that Lily had killed someone, and that Mark had been her unwitting accomplice. Years later, Mark would still carry the weight of that decision. The guilt of defending a murderer haunted him, a reminder that some bonds, no matter how deep, could never be restored.